Sunday, and I will give more or less a broad overview. Some things that are missing on the slides, so I will just talk about them. When I started at DRG, biodiversity was also something which is known. It exists, but it's not really necessary for us. Carbon fobbing was also something which comes, but we don't know exactly how that works. So the session goes hand in hand with the topics presented already by Johannes, sustainability and resilience. I will focus more on biodiversity and carbon stuff. But at first, it relates to European policies. You can see these topics highlighted in green. It's addressing the food system. Here in Europe, it's a farm-to-fork strategy under the umbrella of the Green Deal. One topic here is to reduce food waste, food losses. Then we have the topic that goes in the direction of ecosystems, biodiversity. So the idea is to enhance the area managed in accordance with specific practices supporting and maintaining biodiversity. These are the Natura 2000 areas, so under 30% of the entire area of the European Union. It's quite challenging, but it's doable. Another point is within the Green Deal, there's also mentioned that the European Commission would like to be carbon neutral by 2050. Also a challenging issue. I will go in the next slides more into the direction of the carbon stuff as well as biodiversity, but for all of them, this has to be mentioned today. We need resources that allow sharing data and information, and not just based on databases and paper sheets we have to fill in. This is the last part of my presentation. This slide gives a minor impression of the regulations, directives that are relevant and for these topics I will address today. On the left side, there are some carbon ambitions. I mentioned the Commission would like to be carbon neutral by 2050. There are some regulations behind that as well as strategies. The same for agriculture and the environment, including biodiversity. It's a bunch of regulations and directives giving guidance how to achieve these goals, despite not explaining in detail how we make it. And this was also addressed today. Well, we have a goal in Singapore, reaching the 2030 goal, 30% of the nutrition should be produced within Singapore. It's the same, but they do not say exactly how to do it. It's up to us. But what happened last year? And this is something I would like to highlight. There was some researchers assessed in more detail certificates, carbon offsetting certificates. It's a huge market. And you can see on the left side, this is a result published based on the publication from Westphal in a German newspaper. It's Zeit Online. You can see this red and black line. This represents the area where we can really offset carbon emissions from a specific sector. But they scored more than that. This is the yellow area. So 90%, approximately 90% of all certificates, just bullshit. There doesn't exist any real treat behind that. And that brings us to the question, how can we assure that certificates that are sold on the market are based on real activities, and here in terms of sequestering carbon somewhere else compared to the emissions emitted, for instance, in Europe. And the Parliament of the European Commission developed a type of, it's a directive. They developed a directive called Green Claim, goes into the direction of preventing greenwashing. So there they mentioned, how can we build trust at the customer's level? How can we build trust within these payment schemes, those who invest? And this directive will assist us, because when you put an information on any type of product labeling, this is, let's say, saves the goal, then there must be evidence behind that. And this directive will sort out, but it's just a proposal to the Commission and the Council of the European Union. So there must be an approval, there must be approval of all of the three organizations being responsible in the European Commission for such regulations enacting them. based on that, I come to the carbon market, or even carbon, I will go into the direction of carbon farming. It goes also into the direction and how can we confirm that the carbon they will sequester, or even the emissions they will reduce, are real. On the left side, you can see some ambitions of the European Commission. Above the zero line, there are the emissions. Mainly they come from agriculture. And then on the other side, we have some seeds, mainly in forest areas. The Commission would like to come up with a maximum, with a specific level of carbon sequestered. So it's a net value of 310 megaton CO2 equivalents per year. So this is target in the upcoming years. But to achieve that, we need to understand how can we do, and there are several pathways possible. And the Commission thought, set together and developed the so-called carbon farming and the carbon, next slide, carbon removal and carbon farming regulation. But on the right side, you can see a type of assessment in terms of getting a better understanding of what is the amount of carbon we can sequester compared to the investment we have to do. So in the wetland restoration, here they call it restoration of fiscal soils, in soil science note, the restoration of wetlands, this is a key measure. But this is something when we handle this, we did already a lot in terms of converting the systems into a single. The same refers to Southeast Asia. When you go to Malaysia and Indonesia, there's another peak type. Now let's come to the idea how to harmonize and how to standardize at a policy level. It's behind the carbon removal and carbon farming regulation, also drafted by the Parliament. They approved it, and now it's the Commission and the Council side to go into negotiations and to finalize. The basic idea is to set up rules and guidelines and standards on how can we remove carbon from atmosphere. So on the left side, some mechanisms, as well as how can we use farmers and farmland to sequester carbon in the agricultural systems, not just in the soil, but also in the vegetation, as well as reduce emissions. There are also some methods how we can move ahead. But the advantage here is that we have standards, how to measure, how to report, and how to verify. And that will be implemented by 2030. This comes from the European Commission. I was involved as a representative of the DRG at a group initiated by two companies and one agricultural bank on setting up a standard behind the DEAN organization. So we pooled about 30 individuals from private companies, from the financial sector, from research and from NGOs to develop a standard on how to quantify and how to measure carbon sequestered in agricultural soils and how to report. And there are specific rules we should keep in mind. Basic requirements are it must be an additional amount of carbon stored in these ecosystems compared to the baseline system they run. It must avoid any leakages, any translocations, as well as it must be permanent. And this is a challenge. The farmer can increase the carbon in soil, but how can the farmer maintain? Because the climate, temperature increases, humidity as well, and this accelerates the decomposition, and this is challenging. And here we developed a mechanism that we can also implement into the contractual issues. So it's a buffer system as well as either shorter contracts, not that long as I just heard from Australia, something between 25 and 100 years exists over there. So these are the approaches to avoid in the future lacking trust, as we have seen last year when we talk about the offsetting systems. Here, the Commission, as well as initiatives like the DEAN, they will set up standards to harmonize and standardize. My background is soil science. I'm a soil chemist, but during my work, I got an enthusiasm when we talk about ecosystem services and biodiversity. I set up a very large project behind this abbreviation Biomonitor for CAP. CAP means Common Agricultural Policy. And these examples from carbon farming, re-wetting and restoring peatlands, agroforestry, all of that stuff refers to agriculture. And agriculture in Europe is organized and facilitated through the CAP. It's a system a farmer can decide to apply for. There is not a must, but in case they would like to get the funding system, they have to obey specific rules, and they can also apply in addition for something like agroforestry. In parallel, when they diversify their agricultural systems, they serve also a diversification of their landscapes as well as the biodiversity. We will talk about a specific bird, we do not know exactly what is the additional service of this bird. But the entire system will provide an additional or deliver additional ecosystem services, pollination, or even at least maintain or even increase this capacity to deliver. Pollination is important in farming. Water purification, retaining water in soil, retaining carbon in soil, soil fertility. All of this stuff is relevant for farmers because in case they lose these properties from their land, they have to invest more in technologies, fertilizers, pesticides, etc. So it's a win-win then, but very challenging to communicate. For the carbon market, they have mechanisms developed. Now it's just a matter of supporting mechanisms that help to harmonize and standardize and build up trust. We talk about biodiversity. It's at its infancy. We do not know exactly how we can implement biodiversity into business models. But this will be part of the Biomonitor for CAP project. I developed the project to monitor biodiversity in agricultural land. The technologies are clear, the approaches are not clear, will be solved by the project. And then we will go through work packages addressed on adaptation capability at farmers level as well as policy level, and end up with an economic assessment will be coordinated by Martina. So here we are at an early stage on how to implement that into businesses, and we will develop further, but I think a blueprint might be the carbon market. Finally, there will be created a lot of data. Specifically, we talk about biodiversity. There is nobody in the field who counts butterflies or hears the birds. It will be managed by devices that can monitor automatically, cameras, acoustic systems, molecular methods, just taking some soil samples is necessary. But that creates an enormous amount of data. But who hand these data over to those who will use them for any type of verification, monitoring, labeling, certification? Nobody knows. It will create a huge mess. And what we need, and this is currently under development, are so-called systems allowing access to these data. And it's not based on feeding a database. Nobody will do. It's based on agreements. Farmer, for instance, has specific data that are necessary to evaluate biodiversity at farm level. Then the farmer says data are available and you can use for specific purposes and just for 2 weeks. And this is based on this illustration here on the left bottom area. EDC stands for Eclipse Data Space Components. And these are open access components, allowing setting up these data spaces. And then when we consider also all of these actors being involved, we talk about an ecosystem, data ecosystem, to share these data and act like a source. It's on the right side. It's from an illustration of a proposal we submitted, but due to financial challenges at the ministry, we haven't got the funding. But we have several sources, and on the other side, things might be retailing, and the source might be a farmer, allowing the exchange based on these open access tools. But for sure, the entire process needs to be set up so those who are expert in ICT, they need the use cases. And this was the idea of the project. And this is also something you may keep in mind. In case you have a specific idea, just bounce this idea to me, because I can talk with these guys from Fraunhofer. They demand on use cases to set up these ICT systems. On the left upper side, there are some icons of European projects just looking into these systems, setting up data spaces. They look as well just for use cases. And I guess that's everything from my side for today. Not for today, for this presentation.